If you take one step, then you will be a little closer to your dream than if you stay just where you are.
Welcome to Coming Home Well. I'm your guest host, Liz Booker, a retired Coast Guard helicopter pilot and writer on a mission to influence the demographics of aviation through story. As literary aviatrix, I have built a community of readers and writers around books featuring women in aviation, and have interviewed authors about their books and their writing and publishing journeys. A large portion of these stories reflect the ways in which aviation history is indelibly linked to military history. This interview is a rebroadcast of the Aviatrix Book Review podcast in collaboration with Coming Home Well. While my interviews span the diversity of aviation experiences, I hope the ones that are featured here will educate and inspire those who listen. These are human stories of grit and courage, failure and success that happen to be about women in military aviation from around the world throughout our history.
Here I am, I'm ready to go again, ready to say goodbye when the sky is high. No reason to stay on ground. Lift your hands and you can touch and fly.
Hello and welcome. I'm Liz Booker, literary aviatrix, and I'm thrilled to celebrate the launch of a sweet new picture book, Thundermouse, by former Thunderbird team demonstration pilot Caroline Jensen. Caroline Blaze Jensen, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, are you kidding me? I'm so excited to be able to talk with you and so excited about this sweet book. Oh my gosh. I think I told you when I reached out to you that instantly tears when I saw the cover of it and the concept of it. Can you give us an overview of the book?
Yes. So I was not the first woman to be selected to fly for the Thunderbirds, but I was the first mom back in 2011. And at the time, my son was 3.5 years old. Like, we were still going through potty training. It was a big deal for the team to hire a mom, that someone would be away from their kids. And, you know, my son was very, very excited about it. But he said, Mom, I really just want to come with you. And he was excited about all the adventures. And I said, well, you know, there's only one seat in the airplane, so you can't come with. And he said, but what if I be turned into a mouse and I can sneak into the cushion? So that's how the whole concept came about, because he wanted to travel with me. And I wrote the book in 2013, around then. It actually rhymed at first on the Thunderbirds. People don't know we used to, and maybe they still do, we would write like a ditty, like a funny poem. And so I kind of wrote it in like a poem form, and then it just evolved over the years to what is going to be released next Tuesday, October 10th is the release of the book. So it's a great little story about the connection between a parent who's gone and a child who's left at home.
Yeah, it's so sweet. It's so sweet. And maybe you'll do a little reading for us.
Finn was a little boy when the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds chose his mom to soar in the sky with the team. Can I go with and fly in the shows? Finn asked. Where would you sit? She laughed. I don't have a back seat. His mom would be gone a lot. Finn's heart thumped with joy and broke at the same time. Finn heard a small voice. It'll be okay, said the mouse. I can help. Can you go with my mom, Thunderbird 3? Of course, said the mouse. I can watch over her and be her good luck charm. Then I'll make you a little mouse helmet and a little flight suit, said Finn. I'll give you the call sign Thundermouse. The little mouse snuck into Three's bag and prepared for his first flight.
No.
And you can see the rest. I love the illustrations. It really portrays the dynamics, I think, of the Thunderbird show and riding in an airplane. And there's some neat little Easter eggs hidden in the illustrations that pay tribute to the WASP, paid tribute to where the illustrator went to Paris to actually learn how to do some of the techniques for illustrating a children's book. My grandmother was a World War II veteran, was actually in the Coast Guard. She was a SPAR during World War II.
So was mine.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
I I would have put a
Well,
picture back here had I known that. That's
oh
crazy.
yeah. Yeah, there's like a little picture on the wall and on the illustrations. That's my grandma. So that's cool. Our grandmas might have known each other.
That is so
Yeah.
cool. We're going to talk more about that later. That's so
Okay.
amazing. Oh my gosh. This book is so fun. Tell us about the illustrator.
The illustrator is Donna Eicher. She lives in Minnesota, Northfield, Minnesota, and she is a retired elementary school educator and extremely talented artist, works in sculpture and painting and did the illustrations. This is her very first book. So I hope she decides to do more, but we all learned a lot in this process together, but it was very neat because it's a self-published book that we were able to collaborate a lot on the images to make sure that they're an accurate representation of what it would look like to be flying with the Thunderbirds and what it was like at a home with a mom who's gone a lot flying in the military and how the kids handle that.
Well, Caroline, there's so much about this book that I love. I love the concept of some way of managing and comforting our children when we have to go away, knowing that it's a bit of a sacrifice, but in some way we're also doing it for them, right? At least that's how I lived
Absolutely.
with myself when I said goodbye to my
Yeah.
kids. And so I think it's wonderful for children whose parents work. So moms and dads can read this to their kids. I also think it's good for girls and for boys. I mean, you have a male character there, but we have you as the role model, this highly accomplished woman doing something so extraordinary, and being an example of a working woman for our children, both boys and girls, and for other parents. You're the whole package as far as I'm concerned, of the kind of person I looked up to. I wish I had more of when I was a junior officer, or even trying to navigate like what is a life as a pilot going to be like as a mother, because I was already a mom when I went to flight school. So you would have been a great role model for
No.
me had I known about you. And so I'm so excited to meet you. And I want to talk all about that and how you got to the point that you were a mother and a Thunderbird. So tell us about your
Yeah.
journey in aviation.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the compliment. And I think that I love the phrase, you have to see it to be it. But also, you and I know full well that if we had to see something to be it, we probably wouldn't have become it. So I really encourage people just to, envision what you want for yourself and get people who are as adjacent to what you want to be and have them help you to kind of build the life that you want. So that's where I came from. And my story is that I have my grandmother, like I said, who was a SPAR during World War II in the Coast Guard. My grandfather on my dad's side was actually in the Coast Guard as well, and he was on the Coast Guard cutter Dwayne.
Cool.
I know I should have gone to the Coast Guard, but I decided to go to the Air Force.
That's fine.
Yeah. And my dad was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam and flew helicopters, and so I grew up with this intense sense of patriotism. And when I was about 6, I saw a movie with an airplane flying around clouds, and I really wanted to do that. And when I was about 12 years old, 1986, 87, Top Gun came out. And I was like, I don't want to be Charlie. I want to be Maverick in this, whole thing.
Wait,
so
say
I
again, how old were you?
It was 1986. I was like 12 years old when I wanted to fly.
Okay, we're same age. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And as you know, the combat exclusion wasn't lifted for women until 1993. And so I used the story of the WASP. My dad told me about the WASP and said, you need to do everything that you can do so that when the rules change, that you are qualified, prepared, first in line, raising your hand to go fly fighters. I would have been happy flying anything. I can honestly say that now. And I'm sure it's easy to say from the career that I've had. But I just love flying, and I was always enamored with it. I really loved the idea of serving my country, and it was amazing that the rules changed so I could serve my country in the way that I wanted to serve, and in a way that I hope would make the WASP proud too.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was your path? Did you go to the academy? What'd you do?
Yes, I went to the Air Force Academy. I had one flight in a Cessna 172 before I went to the academy, and it was the third time I'd ever been on like an airliner. So I had 4 total times where I was airborne on my flight to the academy, but I knew I wanted to be a fighter pilot cost is a big barrier to entry to young people, men and women who want to fly, and even older people who want to fly. So that I was kind of fell into that. My parents were educators, and we had a great lifestyle. There were 5 kids in my household between my mom and my stepdad. So I went to the academy with this dream, and everything worked out. I struggled a lot with academics, and was lucky my beginning of my sophomore year that I was selected to become a glider instructor at the Air Force Academy. So that was really my first introduction to flight, was flying gliders. And I had about 120 hours that were like a 0.1 or 2 at a time, because we didn't do any, thermaling in the regular Sorforel program. We just took someone who didn't really know anything. Like literally I had people going, what's a rudder? Like, what's a rudder pedal? Put your feet on them. That's your first clue. And then take them to solo an airplane by themselves over the Front Range in Colorado by the Air Force Academy. So that's how I started. I was in this T3 program, and we had like 3 serious mishaps that were fatal, really sad. And they literally stopped the program while I was sitting in the airplane. And I had not had a private pilot's license yet. So I went into a program that they gave me 40 hours and said, do what you can do with these 40 hours. The minimum requirement was a solo. And I was able to get my PPL before I went off to pilot training that way. And then I was a first assignment instructor pilot flying the T-38 in Del Rio, Texas at Laughlin Air Force Base, which taught me a lot. It's like, giving you enough rope to hang yourself with and trusting you with the keys to a jet and sending you cross country with a student who's not much younger than you are, taught me a lot about airmanship. So it was a great start. And then I got selected to fly the mighty F-16. I went to fly in Korea, and then Hill Air Force Base, and deployed to Iraq in 2007, 2008, with the 4th Fighter Squadron out of Hill Air Force Base, Utah. And I came home, and I was planning to transition to the reserve, and I ended up pregnant with my son. And so he was born as I went into the reserves, and then I later became an active guard reserve. So I finished a complete active duty tour. So after I had my son, I went back to flying the T-38, which was great to kind of rewire your brain. As you know, when you have a baby, things just kind of go, and it really brought everything back into focus for me, which was wonderful. And then while I was, up in the middle of the night, I saw the mail on the counter, and there was a Citizen Airman magazine from the reserve, and it had a little article in the back about Stroker Gustafson, who was the first reservist to be selected to fly for the Thunderbirds. And I decided to apply, and it worked out. So I did that job for 3 years. It was supposed to be 2, but sequestration grounded us in 2013. And that was like how I went to the Thunderbirds. After that, I went and worked in DC for a year in the Senate as a legislative liaison. And then I went back to flying in the aggressors at Nellis Air Force Base, F-16s, retired from there. And I went to work for Boeing, and kind of one of the coolest 5 hours I think that I have in my logbook are with the Boeing T-7A Red Hawk, the new trainer that's being fielded. So I did that. And then I decided to kind of create the family space and still work so I could be home with my son, who's 15 years old now. He'll be 15 next week, or week after next.
Oh man, Caroline, that career. I was like, my teenage self is like getting goosebumps because all the things you said were like all the things that really excited me, starting with, the Top Gun movie when I was 13. And I was already I already knew I wanted to be a pilot. So I just made some poor choices as a teenager that limited my options. And so that's what led me to the Coast Guard. But the career path that you had was the one that I dreamt of. And so it's so inspiring to hear that, anyone who accomplishes a thing that you aspired to. So great to talk to you and to hear that story. And so what are you doing? How did you create that space for yourself now? What are you doing now?
Well, I actually moved back to my hometown. So I've been a single mom for 9 years now, and my family's here. So we got grandmas and grandpas around, and sister and cousins, and I'm close to a major airport. I can still fly and work. One of the things I've been that is most dear to my heart, literally without the story of the WASP and that inspiration of them having flown all the pursuit airplanes and having served, in every mission in the Air Force or the Air Corps at the time, except for combat. That inspired me and kept me going before the rules changed. And then after, when I had a hard day, I'm like, the WASP would have done, anything to be in this position. I just feel so grateful for their service and their inspiration. And because of that, I've been on the board of directors at the National WASP World War II Museum down at Avenger Field in Sweetwater, Texas, where they trained. And I am the president-elect for the board there. So that's all volunteer. There's a lot of amazing people on the board and working there at the museum to tell that story and preserve the history, promote that legacy, and protect the airfield where the WASP trained. So that's a real labor of love, and I have a lot of space for that. I also do keynote speaking, and I do some corporate counseling, and I do free mentorship for anybody who's thinking about like a military or flying career. So I get contacted a lot out of the blue, or friends of friends, or people find me through my website and just help them kind of, even like almost like counseling. Like I have someone who got an assignment and wasn't quite sure she wanted her assignment, or had someone who was having a hard time with the Introduction to Fighter Fundamentals course, and just like talking to them and giving them perspective on the experience as a whole, I think has been really rewarding for me to be able to give back. And like you said, we didn't have a lot of those people that we could call on and ask for help and their perspective. So it means a lot to me to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I have so many questions. Okay. First of all, thank you for what you do for the WASP Museum. That's amazing. How can people support the museum?
There's a great way to support the museum and be aware of all of the happenings that are going on there is to become a member of the museum. So you can go on waspmuseum.org and just sign up for a membership. You can do it all online. There's a beautiful newsletter that comes out, I think it's every quarter, that has all of the latest happenings at the museum. And in April, for anybody who wants to come, but I think especially women in aviation would love to be at Avenger Field in the last weekend in April. We usually have a fly-in. Last year we had a B-29 and a B-25 there. I mean, it was like awe-inspiring to see these aircraft flying out of Avenger Field. And we have a big dinner, and there's, we have an auction, but it's more towards fun, and it's themed for like the 1940s. And it's beautiful way to get together and have that kind of sisterhood around being a female pilot. And have you ever been to Avenger Field?
No, it's been on my list for a while now, so I will get there eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, please come. And you can stand there and you can feel the history, and you can feel that, because the weather is pretty intense. Like they have really great crosswinds in West Texas. If anybody's looking to practice their crosswind landings, strong winds, blowing sand, like the dust, the sun is intense, and you just can feel what they went through. So it's just really special to be there in that space and experience the conditions that they did. So it's everybody that I've talked to, I have not heard one single person say that they had a bad time. We always have a great speaker who speaks at the dinner, and then we'll do like a little kind of fun auction and fundraiser there. We had armadillo races last year. It was pretty fun.
Perfect in Texas. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Spent a little time growing up there, so that's funny.
Okay.
And then you mentioned that you do some keynote speaking. What's your angle, or what will you bring to an event?
Well, I like to bring things that I learned about just being great and success as a fighter pilot and as a Thunderbird. And I think people think, Thunderbird, oh, you're a perfect pilot and everything goes right. And that's, not the truth, just like in life. And there's a lot of obstacles that we all have to overcome. And I like to share my personal story with those different obstacles. And there are plenty of times in your life where you can give up, but just look at what you'll miss if you do that. So that's one of my main messages. And then I also like to talk about communication, like in a leadership forum, and how important it is. And I like to kind of talk through the communication that the Thunderbirds use. And you say the same thing like thousands of times, right? But the way you say something conveys almost as much as the words that you use. So especially in a leadership or an instructional situation where you keep saying the same things over and over again, that tone and the pace and those things are really important when you're leading a team. And I think one of the most important things is, as a leader, you always have to think about the team that you're leading becoming leaders themselves and trusting them and helping to build your replacement. And they are much more effective followers if they understand that they will be moving into a leadership position. So those are some of my main messages, but I can, I tailor it a lot. There's a lot of great avenues to explore that go back to, the Thunderbird thing and flying in combat and working in the military, being part of a team, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the experience of going off and training for this incredibly demanding role that you had with the baby at home. Like, how'd you manage it? What was your support network like? What advice do you have for other women who are in high demand jobs with small children at home? Tell us everything.
Yeah. Well, I think when I was selected to fly for the Thunderbirds, my son was 3.5, and he literally was still I think he was about 3 when I found out he was still in diapers. And I like to tell this story. We were at Disney World. Yeah. So we were at Disney World, and I got a phone call from my commander saying, "Hey, you got picked up." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's this very long process to get selected for the Thunderbirds." It's almost a week-long interview where you go to an air show, and then if you get called back, then you go back 2 weeks later. And so I got a call from my commander saying, "Hey, congratulations." And I was so excited. And I had a lot of help from my now ex-husband, was a pilot for a major airline, and he was able to take some time off. I saw, family members more than I probably would have if I'd been on regular active duty, because they were able to come and stay with him during training and during working. So, it takes a village to do a lot of child rearing, and that was definitely helpful there. I had a friend who had deployed. She had twins and had to deploy, and she came back, and she's just like, "Man, I missed giving my child a bath and reading them my daughter's baths and reading them books." And it's sad and it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, my thought and what I said to her is well, I mean, just think of the example that you set, right? They probably aren't going to remember who read them a book when they were a year old, but they will remember that you served your country and that you sacrificed for your country, and that, they're going to know it was hard for you to leave them. And that's how important our freedoms are and how much our country is really worth it. So I think it's really beautiful, but it's definitely challenging. And, especially when you're on the road with a toddler and you're at an air show, and, it's cotton candy and corn dogs and popcorn and garbage everywhere. So they really wanted to, he really wanted that kind of stuff. And the air show's always during nap time too. So, sometimes I'd wave at him on the taxi out and they'd be gone on the taxi back in. And then, he wanted to sleep in mom's bed. So I'd, be trying to get a good night's sleep for an air show, and I'd wake up with a foot in my face. And
oh man.
But
yeah.
It was really wonderful to have him there and experience that. And that third year on the team was such a blessing, because he was just a little bit older. And there's a scene about this in the book. He was just walking around, this cute little blonde kid with a buzz cut and a flight suit. And the Fox News stopped him and said, "Hey, little boy, what's your favorite part about the air show?" And they didn't know who he was, that he was related to anybody. And he goes, "When my mom flies," which I thought he was probably say the guns over there, or the, ATVs or the helicopter, right. But he said, "When my mom flies."
That's the best.
Yeah.
Oh,
so it was neat that he had that understanding of what was going on. And of course we had quite a few kids at that age, and I think he kind of took it for granted, because a lot of them hung out together and went to the same school, and they're like, "Oh, everybody's parent, is a Thunderbird pilot, so whatever."
Exactly.
But
not as cool, but close is the story that I love to tell. When I was, just back from a Women in Aviation conference, taking my daughter, she'd hung out with all my girlfriends there, and sitting with the WAI magazine, reading an article about somebody probably I knew, and she leans over and she's like, "Mommy, can boys be helicopter pilots too?"
I love it.
And I'm like, "Yeah, they can."
Yeah. Love it.
There's skewed perspective of it's just normal. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Amazing. I'm sure he appreciates it now. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. He, it's funny. He was playing when he had his Fortnite phase. he picked like a skin and it was a skeleton, like a woman wearing like a skeleton costume. And someone was like, but you're a boy. Like, why did you pick that one? He's like, women can do anything, like,
Aw, that's
I
awesome.
like this one. This is my favorite. And like, he just didn't understand why someone was giving him a hard time for picking a female skin during the game.
Good for
But
him. We
yeah.
need more of him in the world.
Well, and that's, I got a lot of like, oh, it's so great. You're such a wonderful influence on young women. I'm like, yes, absolutely. But as a boy mom, my child will not go out into this world and limit the women around him,
Yes, good job, Mama.
And so, yeah, he'll be a great advocate for women like us who are in male dominated fields and, like aviation. So that's important to me too, that young boys see that example.
Well, congratulations that you had the support network that allowed you to fulfill that really amazing opportunity and also provide your son with, the love and support that he needed at the same time. I've been very fortunate in that way too with my husband. I'm twice married too. So I had a practice round. But this, it's important to have some kind of support network, and not all of it is always like a direct partner. It's whatever you have around you, but you really demonstrate, that you can do some really amazing things and also raise children in a very positive way. So congratulations for that.
Well,
and
thank
you. For
you.
your example. Yeah.
Well, and I will share towards the end of my career, I retired like right at 20 years of active duty service from the reserve, and I'd been in for like 24 counting the 26 counting the academy time. But I was in Las Vegas and I was flying with the aggressors, and the aggressors support all the missions at Vegas, and that is like practically a 24-hour operation. And I was the operations officer for that squadron, and I think it was the busiest flying squadron in in the warfare center, and probably one of the very busiest in Air Combat Command. And we had missions that some of them we were scheduling that would take off at 10 and land at 4 in. And when you go home as a mom, you can't go to bed at 4 in and wake up at 3. You still got to, get them to school and pack a lunch. I had an au pair that I brought in. And even that's tricky with the rules for au pairs. And I would buy tickets to fly parents and, grandparents down to hang out. So it ended up costing a lot of money, a lot of time. And as much as I loved it, my son had moved 5 times by the time he got to 7th grade. And so unfortunately it was time to retire. I felt like I did my parents proud. I did the WASP proud. I still had, some runway ahead of me in the Air Force, but I feel like part of the mentorship I'm giving back and, replenishing that source of women who are motivated to take on these roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, I think, it's just a hard decision when you get there, but you make the right one for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to a point myself where the place where it hurt financially the most for me was when I was junior enlisted, because I was enlisted first and I was a mom, and my ex-husband wanted me to get out of the service and stay home and take care of the baby. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do that.
Sounds familiar.
I don't think that's the life that I'm going to live, but maybe somebody else. And so I stayed in, but what it meant was that when he was on active duty and he had duty and I was underway or on duty, that I was shelling out like half of my paycheck for childcare. But I in my mind, I knew I had opportunities in front of me in the Coast Guard that I wasn't going to find in the civilian world. And I felt like confident that I could pursue them. And so I could look at his little face and just say, I'm doing this for you. But that as I got older and more senior, I started to question. I was like, am I really still doing this for my family, or am I doing it for my ego? It's been a really good run. Like, I'm ready to transition and maybe not do the next level thing that I will also share. I didn't believe I could do, like we were talking about earlier, the see it to believe it. Another story I love to tell is that, I'm a mom already. I'm a pilot, junior pilot, pregnant. I'm at a women's leadership symposium, and I'm sitting in the audience when our most senior female aviation she ended up being an admiral, but at the time she was an 06, was speaking, and she was great. And I respected her, but I didn't identify with her, because she was, as far as I knew, single, solo, married to the Coast Guard, and made her way that way. And that wasn't going to be me. I couldn't possibly have that life. But when she said, my biggest regret is not marrying my flight school sweetheart 20 years ago, because she ended up marrying her later, and not having children. As soon as she said that to me, I was like, okay, you are a real human being. And now maybe that's a possibility for me. And so like, it just opened my aperture just to hear somebody say that even and get vulnerable that way, made them real to me, and made it at least possible, even if I didn't go that far.
Yeah. Well, and it's great to see both sides of the coin, right? Because you definitely can do it solo on your own. And, not everybody wants to have children, and I totally respect that too, but it's good to see kind of both sides. And I gave up like a big Fortune 50 defense contractor industry job to really focus on my home life, and then kind of create this business and do things that I love, like the WASP Museum and this book, and my speaking, and I can take jobs as it fits with the schedule. So that's been really great. But it was kind of hard for me, because I always want to be like, I'm the pilot. Like you said, that ego, like I feel like I need to be like really leaning into this job. And then I just realized like it was really taking a toll on me, and, burnout's a real thing. And I probably was burned out for many, many years before I was able to admit it to myself. So I think we tend to take care of everyone around us and maybe not ourselves so much. I know for sure it was the right choice, but it took me a long time to reconcile that with myself.
Yeah, no, I respect that. I have enough of it on my own as well. So I think it's something for all of us to deal with. Let's talk about how you got this book baby out into the world. So you're literally like going to be in receipt of books tomorrow.
Yes.
Can't wait. Can you send me a little video or picture of you unboxing, and I'll share that?
Absolutely. I almost thought I was going to get to do it with you, and the UPS driver pulled up.
Amazing.
And I was excited, but it was the mailers. So everyone who orders it from my Shopify site, I'm signing them, and I'm
we could do a live tomorrow.
them.
We could totally do like a live or something, and we could do it like, that would be fun.
Yeah. So it said tomorrow before 7, and I was like, man, can I like have them drop it off at a hub, and I'll go get it tonight? But
that's so great.
Yeah.
So how do we get this idea from idea to on paper and out in the world?
So it was literally, I wrote this kind of story down on the back of one of my lineup cards on the Thunderbirds. And I saved a bunch of my lineup cards. They're kind of cool because they show all the different, there's like a photo and like the show line and everything. And so I had saved it, and I was like going through things like later, and I found it, and it had always been in my head too. So I, kind of like worked on it, and it sat for a while. And, I think being a speaker, a lot of people like to take something away from it. And I think a book is a great way to share your story. And I do, events with Girls in Aviation Day and schools and things like that. And that relationship with my son meant a lot. But I was really inspired by Erin Miller, who I met in 2016 when she was campaigning on the Hill to get getting Arlington to reinstate the rights for WASP to be earned there. So I saw her go through that process, and she wrote one great book, and then she wrote her children's book too. And she's an attorney, and she's also a recent private pilot now. So she knows how to get a checklist and go through processes. And she was great in kind of describing the whole self-publishing process to me.
Yeah, let's just make sure we give a shout out to her book. So Erin Miller wrote Final Fight, which is literally about her pounding the halls of Congress to get the law changed, and it's an amazing story. And then she has her children's picture book, What Grandma Did. Look, got them right there.
I got my favorite books here.
And she's just a lovely person as well. So congratulations to her on her recent pilot's license.
Yep. And she did. And so that's where, when she was on the Hill, working on this project, that's when I was working for a senator on the Senate Armed Services Committee. And that's how we met and became friends there. So obviously with her grandma being a WASP and my passion for a WASP, like I was glad that I could give her all the information I knew on the Senate side of things. But then recently I met a woman named Lisa Bolt Simons, and she is the daughter of a Thunderbird who passed away in an aircraft accident in the F4 50 years ago. And she is an author of over 70 different books, a very accomplished published author. And she is an editor, and she has her own business too called the Manuscript Matchmaker. And so I was like, hey, I have this idea, and she kind of helped edit it for me. And then she's the one who made the magic happen by introducing me to Donna Eicher, the illustrator. And so it was like a really cool project because we would all kind of get together at Donna's house and go through things and, you know, maybe reword a little bit and tweak the images and think like what we wanted on each page. And I just, like I said, it's so beautiful, and Donna's really creative and an amazing artist. So to see kind of the flow as things go through the book, it was a really fun project to do, but they, between Erin kind of guiding me through the process and Lisa connecting me and Donna with the illustrations. And then there's the book designer is Roberta Morris. leaveittoberta.com is her site, and she put everything together and, you know, put up with us trying to get things perfect our first time through our first book.
Yeah. Well, it looks like it's beautiful. I can't wait to see it in my hands, in your hands. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
What are you doing? I know you have a book launch event coming. What's happening?
Yes, I am so excited. I'm a member of the Commemorative Air Force and the Minnesota wing, and they've been gracious to open their gorgeous hangar. All the airplanes will be there, including Miss Mitchell. Their B-25 will be the backdrop for the launch of my book. I'm so excited. On Friday, the 13th of October. 13 has always been a lucky number for me. For some reason, I kept getting the 13 peg over and over again.
Wow.
And it's also the day before my son's 15th birthday. So it'll be a little bit of a celebration for him. And I think it's funny too that the 14th of October is the anniversary of Chuck Yeager breaking the sound barrier. So I'm like, this is my kid, right? So we'll have the book launch there. It's open to the public. It's a free ticket. If people can go in the area, you can go on the Eventbrite, and that way I know how many extra books to bring. I'll read the book and we'll do a signing. And I have a couple of special friends that are coming, a A-10 pilot and my friend Teresa Claiborne, who was the first Black woman to get her wings in the Air Force, is going to be there.
Yes.
So we just have some really powerful, cool women, and, you know, the Commemorative Air Force does such an amazing job telling the story of the history. So I think it's kind of cool to marry that World War II history that was so inspiring and the future of the book.
Absolutely amazing. So remind us where we can find the book. It's available for pre-order right now, and it's going to be out for release on the 10th, right?
Yes. And it's through Amazon.com. You can get it on Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, and you can also find it on my Shopify site. If you buy it from my site, I will sign it, and you can send me a note to personalize it too. So yeah, I'm excited. It's been a really great learning experience, and yeah, it's like you said, putting my baby out there for everyone to enjoy. I think it'll be a really meaningful story for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? Any advice for young women getting started in their aviation careers, or moms working, anything you want to share?
For working moms and moms in the aviation field, I think reaching out to other women has been really key. Knowing that you're not alone, because it feels so isolated and isolating to be a woman in aviation, because there aren't a lot of organizations that have multiple women. A lot of squadrons I was in, a couple of them I was the first, and some of them there was maybe like one other woman there, but it just, like, a lot of times you're the only woman in the room, and I know a lot of times you're the only woman in the cockpit, but just reach out. There's, you know, different organizations between WAI and the 99s and FAST, and, you know, all of them. I'm a member of everything. So it's good to have that sisterhood and, you know, try to use a word other than fellowship. with other women aviators, but women who've done it before you, had the kids, and you were ahead of me. I wish that I had known you then to kind of reach out and, silly things like, how's my body going to react to flying, or how do I handle nursing, flying, and, in a single seat airplane, how do you manage, having to go to the bathroom, silly little things that just impact and kind of pull your energy away from the mission, whether it's combat or civilian flying, flying yourself or flying 300 people. Those things are really important. And for young girls to just seek out mentors. I like to walk in my neighborhood every day. I walk my dog, and I was walking down the street, and this little girl stops me and she says, "Are you a fighter pilot?" And I was like, yes. And she had been to Oshkosh, and she met another fighter pilot. She's like, "I want to be a female fighter pilot." And some of the neighbors knew my history. And so, she'll just come by and say hi. And I had her over, and she's 9 years old and completely sought me out and my mentorship. And so, I think for young kids, don't be afraid to reach out and ask somebody, like, find them on their Instagram or find them there's so much social media, go to a Girls in Aviation Day. And, I think that I've not met a single female pilot that doesn't want to inspire another female pilot to do what they want to do. So that's my advice for young girls.
Fabulous. Well, Caroline, thank you so much. Thank you for your book. Thank you for your service and your inspiring story. I can't wait to see this book just make lots of people happy.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Thanks so much for listening. You can also find Thundermouse along with hundreds of other books featuring women in aviation on the literary Aviatrix website. And if you're looking specifically for books for young readers, you can use the filters to narrow down your options, and you can even sort for picture books. I'd like to thank Michael Wilds of Massive and Crew for his help in producing this interview and for his creative and technical support of all things literary Aviatrix. Blue skies and happy reading. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Coming Home Well, for your collaboration in helping these stories reach a broader audience. Writing is a deeply healing and cathartic exercise. It can help you process your experiences, whether you intend to share them with the world or keep them to yourself. Living the experiences of others through reading can also help heal, validate, and create a sense of connectedness. If you're interested in hearing about how these authors brought their stories to life on the page, check out the Writer's Room interviews on the Aviatrix Book Review website and podcast. If you'd like to join the book club conversations, look for the Aviatrix Book Club on Facebook. All are welcome. And connect with me on social media at Literary Aviatrix. I'd love to hear from you. Blue skies and happy reading.